Back to the Hydrawise Insights from the Field. This is going to be episode 4 of the 8-part series that we're doing on Hydrawise. We're really excited. Today's topic is the first install. So we want to highlight all the things you need to know for your first install to be a pro. So without further ado, I want to introduce our speakers today. We have Kevin Lewis, sales manager in New York. We have Kevin Battistoni, who you guys are pretty familiar with if you've watched another one of these webinars so far, and Anthony Long, product manager for Hydrawise controllers, and myself, Greg Rosing, product training specialist here at Hunter Industries. We're really excited to have all of you here on the call. Kevin, you want to take it away?
Got it, Greg. Thank you. Beautiful introduction. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon, Australia. Anthony, good morning. What we're going to cover here today, before I get into it, again, Greg mentioned it is your first install. So some of this information will be a little repetitious from what we've gone through in a couple of the webinars we've already had. There will be some new stuff, of course. So first install, the things we're going to chat up and go through today are hardware and Wi-Fi connection, which, as we know from yesterday, is 90% of the issues that you guys are having in the field based upon the tech support phone calls you're making in to our guys in tech support, right? Homeowner access, sometimes we see the cart put before the horse. You have an overzealous homeowner, goes off, creates his own Hydrawise account. It's not an issue to merge it, but I'm going to explain things in the order that's most simplistic and easy to follow. And I would advise that you follow this outline we use today, because it'll never put you in a spot where you have to call tech support and perhaps in the eyes of your customer look like you don't have your head around the whole system you just installed, right? So we're going to show you the shortest way home. And then Kev's going to take over and go through, once we have virtually hung the controller, got it connected at Mrs. Johnson's house or Mrs. Jones. We haven't decided which way we're going there yet. He's going to walk you through step by step, programming it up, that interaction, what it looks and feels like via email and connectivity to create your homeowner account, program your homeowner's controller, all in one quick swoop. And of course, we'll do a little software overview as long as Kev's got the wheel. He'll navigate and show you some other bells and whistles. We're not going to go all the way in because that's going to happen next week, where we go deep dive on programming features. And then finally, in the end, we're going to have our Q&A session with Lewis and Long again. So without further ado, let's jump into it. First thing you need to do is select your hardware. Next week, we're going to get deep into features and benefits and differentiating factors between all 5 types of hardware we have. So on the screen, you can see every one of those 5 flavors. Indoor, if it's indoor or outdoor, the only one that's not is the HC. But basically, whether it's conventional or 2-wire, we have you covered from 4 zones to 54 zones, okay? No one else making Wi-Fi controllers today has that big of an offering in terms of hardware. So once you select the right flavor for your job, pick it up from distribution. Quick, just a side note here. People ask about these, the wiretaps, otherwise known as Amazon Alexa. I know there's other ones out there, whole house home automation. So I'm going to speak to it in the beginning so that you have it in your hip pocket. When it comes up with your homeowner, you can look like a pro, right? So again, I'm going to go to hydrawisesupport.com. If you simply just type in what your question is instead of waiting on the hold for 10 minutes with tech support, get the answer yourself or text your Hunter sales manager. He'll probably text you back the YouTube video for exactly what you're looking for. So for example, if you did not know what home house automation Hydrawise plays friendly with, you'd simply type in home automation, and that's what I did, right? And in the process of that, one of the 2 options you have today, which is Amazon Alexa, there's actually a video embedded right in the website that's 1 minute and 19 seconds, and it shows a homeowner how to actually make their Alexa communicate with their Hydrawise controller for manual operation, okay? So it's more or less, and the neighbor's dog's about to do his business on your front yard, and you say, hey, Alexa, tell Hydrawise to turn on zone 2. Dog gets wet, your grass stays dry from urine, you're on to the next thing. So other ones, when you type in home automation, we play friendly with control 4. That's a much more involved version of house automation outside of Alexa. And Anthony, I'm gonna pass this over to you here because I'd like you to go a little bit deeper. Kevin, I get questions a lot of times. Guys are asking, "Hey, what's API?" And I understand that API having that may or may not allow a third-party home automation system to integrate with Hydrawise. So, do you mind kind of taking a stab at that for us, Anthony?
Yeah, so API is really just a method of one software piece talking to another software piece. So it's kind of like a back-end entrance into Hydrawise, if you like. We have two APIs. If you're not sure what an API is, probably not a good thing to play with it then. But the APIs allow for home automation. So if you've got a computer geek and he just wants to be able to see when his irrigation is going to run, be able to start and stop from his home computer, not using Hydrawise, using some other software, then he'll probably want to use an API. And we've got two APIs. One API is for homeowners so that they can access their Hydrawise system via a third-party, whatever computer program they want to use. And that's all secure. The API enforces our security rules, so we can't be hacked using an API or anything like that. And the only thing that you can see when you use our API is their particular controller. We also have a commercial version of an API. The commercial version allows for water districts. We have some contractors who access the commercial version of the API, and that brings reporting and run times and all that sort of stuff back into other software. So for example, with the Hindsight, if you're using Hindsight, we do have an integration with Hindsight, and that uses our commercial API to do that. So we bring through things like all of the alerts that Hydrawise generates, we bring them through into the Hindsight system. So yeah, so that's kind of how the APIs work.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Sorry for a little sidebar, but I thought it was important. It comes up a lot. Your homeowners are going to ask about it, and we want you to be able to ramble it right off the top of your head. So a little bit of redundancy from yesterday. Again, I'm just going to keep it short and sweet. Confirm that your homeowner has 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi. They're broadcasting that bandwidth. It's a necessity. Okay. If you want to go deep and you missed it, watch yesterday's and you'll have it all. Session number 3. Okay. Again, visually just showing you in distance from the router how much further 2.4 goes than 5, which is one of the reasons that we gravitate towards that particular bandwidth, on average 3 times further. Okay. Now, there is a caveman way of checking Wi-Fi signal, right? And there's a better way, which we know from yesterday, but it still works. It's not a bad thing to do. You just go on your smartphone, open up your settings tab, toggle on Wi-Fi with your phone at controller location, and full bars, as long as we know it's 2.4, should be just fine. 1 bar missing from the top is also acceptable. Beyond that, you run the risk. It might connect, but I don't recommend it, because every time it drops off and reconnects, you're going to be notified. Customer's going to be notified. It's just a bad deal all the way around. Get a good, strong, solid connection, right? So again, you just go into the settings on your phone, toggle on Wi-Fi. That's a simple and easy way. Better way to do it, download Airport Utility if you're an Apple user. If you're an Android user, Wi-Fi Analyzer. Choose the one with a 4.7 star rating out of 5, not 3.7. Okay. So what do you do when you have poor, weak signal? Just quick overview. You can do one of 2 things. You can move the router closer to the controller. You're saying, yeah, right. Or as we know from yesterday, perhaps a mesh network upgrade. Or most simplistic and cost-effective option, Wi-Fi signal enhancer or booster. All right. So clocks outside of Wi-Fi zone. Ideally, we'd love to have it inside. We don't. You bring a booster into play, it plugs into an outlet, all right? And it takes the existing signal, so that the booster must be in range of the router and the access point to pick up that signal and then rebroadcast it. Ideally, halfway between your router and your hardware is where you want to plug it in to get maximum amount of boost. Okay, so assuming we've got that out of the way, you can get them on Best Buy, you can get them on Amazon, look at the reviews. It's as little as $50. If you want to, you can spend more than 100, but read the reviews. You can get something economically priced. So assuming you've gotten all that handled and you just hung the controller on the wall, when you power it up for the very first time, this is the exact screen you're going to see. And I know the first time you do this, you're going to have a little bit of sweat, hairs in the back of your neck are going to stand up, and you're going to go, that does not look like a Pro C. All right, I'm not used to 3 buttons. I'm used to a dial, a plus minus, a program button. So quick little one. It came out organically when Greg and I do one of these a year ago. It was on, but it's been on all the time again. Greg, Kev, Anthony, you guys are fans of the Rocky series?
Sure.
You know it.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't sense much enthusiasm there. Okay, but anyways. So I am as well. And if you remember, my favorite's Rocky 4. I don't know if it's the training montage where the Russian guy, special Russian vitamins through the syringe, whatever it is, it adds to it. He's running the mountains. I like it, right? And if you remember, when you see this screen, I want you to think Rocky 4. If you forget, you know, you go into like a vapor lock mode. And when after round, Rocky took some good licks, as he often does, sits back in his stool, and Paulie looks at him and says, hey, what's going on out there? And Rocky says, I don't know. I see 3 of them. And that's when Paulie has the revelation, says, hit the one in the middle. Okay, so when you see the screen pop up, all you got to do is remember Rocky 4, hit the one in the middle. Okay, that's how you get started. So that's step 1. Step 2, this screen's going to pop up, and all the controller hardware is asking is, do I have permission to take a peek around and see what kind of Wi-Fi signals we've got cooking? And you hit OK again, right? Now, at this point in time, no different than when you're using airport utility, Wi-Fi analyzer, or just toggling on Wi-Fi on your smart device, it's going to populate all of the networks that are within range of that controller. So this is the point in time where you got to knock on the garage door and say, hey, Mrs. Johnson, do you mind coming out into the garage for a brief moment? I need you to implement your network, your SSID, and your password into your controller hung in your garage. I stress all of that because people don't always want to give you their Wi-Fi password, and sometimes for liability, you don't want it, right? So it's good to know you don't need it. And the hardware, at this point, Mrs. Johnson's going to say, yep, that's me, touch the screen, and it's going to prompt her to put her password for that SSID, her network, into the touchscreen. Once that happens, it'll tell you it's attempting to connect, take around 30 seconds, usually less. You'll see visually in the lower right-hand corner a depiction of the Wi-Fi signal at that location as the clock interprets it, as the hardware does. And then what you see here is resting face, okay, of a Hydrawise touchscreen controller. This is home base, zone setting status. When you get to this spot, there is one additional step that you have to take before you leave and assume that it's programmed, right? You're not going to leave until you program it through your application, and Kevin's going to do that with you in a moment. But there is one more check at the touchscreen. So you want to suppress the status button, and after you press the status button, then you want to touch the controller status button on the left-hand side of the screen. Okay, now you see a couple of different things on the screen. What you want to pay attention to is right here where you see my cursor where it says uptime. Uptime is a visual representation of the router, the home router, connected to the hardware. Okay, there's 2 steps. Remember, we got Tan Man, Lotion Boy, modem router setup, Batman and Robin. So over here where it says server status, you want to check this, because if your uptime is okay and it's been connected for X amount of time, great. You're connected to Wi-Fi, but you're not necessarily connected any further. The second and next step is through the modem or the server to the actual internet. And if you have anything other than okay or connected here, then you are not talking to the internet yet. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time here. Next week, when we do some heavy deep dive in Wi-Fi troubleshoot, this will come up. I'll explain to you everything you need to know to look like a pro in this arena as well. But uptime, you want to make sure you're connected, and server status okay. If both those boxes are okay, you are good to go. When you open up the app and you put in the serial number and you program that clock, you're going to have a green check mark saying you're connected. Well, it comes up, so I'm just going to answer it now. Once you put in, the homeowner identifies their network and implements the password, it will store that information. Okay, Hydrawise has the capability of telling you when the controller goes offline, meaning defining offline as, so Hydrawise doesn't know if the clock was unplugged or their Wi-Fi went down. It just knows that it's no longer talking to the internet. So it's one of the two. Clock got unplugged, or hardware, or Wi-Fi went down. The good news is the hardware retains the SSID, the network name, and the password. So when it gets plugged back in or Wi-Fi comes back up, it should automatically reconnect to the internet, right? Now, if the homeowner switches cable providers, gets a new router, changes a characteristic in their password or their SSID, then it's going to require not only making those changes in your hardware for your Hydrawise controller, but every other connected device in their house is going to have the same thing happen, right? So it's a pretty intuitive piece of equipment that it retains that information. All right. So again, that's resting face, and we went through this. Sorry, there we go. So it's just a visual depiction. This is connection to your router. Over here is connection all the way through to the actual internet. So top 4 highlights. Okay, I've covered 3 of them. Kev's going to take care of the rest. So your install checklist, 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi, gotta have it. Proper RSSI or signal strength at controller mounting location. SSID, WPA, right? What am I asking for? What's the name of your network, Mrs. Jones? And what's your password? Or please put the password into my hardware, your hardware. And you also need, put it on your list. This is where I'm going to pass it over to Kevin, because you're standing in the garage with Mrs. Jones. You just connected the hardware. The next step is to ask her for the email address that she would like to use when accessing her controller remotely via web, computer, the application. Because what Kevin's going to walk you through is just by simply having that email address, you're going to, in one step through the app, you're going to create your customer's account for them, link it to your account so it's always attached to it, and then anytime you add a new customer, the software's so intuitive, it says, hey, I bet you're in Mrs. Jones's garage and you want to program her clock, so how about I just build that for you and walk you right through it. And that's exactly what Kevin's going to do now. So Greg, if you would be so kind to switch controls over to Kevin Lewis, and we'll keep rolling.
You're on, brother.
Thanks,
All
sir.
right, thank you very much. So you have sold a controller, you've installed the controller physically, and you connected it to a network, and now it comes time to program the controller through the app. The idea today, what we're doing here is we're going to show you the best way to go about programming that controller, adding the customer. If you follow these steps, it'll result in a better programming for you and your customer, where you're not using any devices from them, you're not borrowing a cell phone or anything like that, and you're also not inviting yourself to have access to the controller after the fact. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through this. We're going to show you how the best way to go about adding a customer is. So if you're looking at my screen right now, you are going to go ahead and log into your account. We know on our end, by the way by your email address, we know whether you're a contractor or not. And we're going to open up the back end of the Hydrawise app to you. We have one app that works for both homeowners and contractors. Our app gives you, the contractor, the kind of back end side to Hydrawise. You can still see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So at this point, usually in trainings, I always make a point to show people, if you're not used to what I'm seeing on this side, it's probably because you're used to programming through a mobile device. As you shrink your screen down on a laptop or a PC, it's going to resemble more what you're accustomed to seeing on your cell phone. So on a mobile device, you got this kind of look here. You got 2 icons on either side, and you have these options down below that are pinned to the home screen the entire time you're in the app. I am going to increase the screen size just so that we could all see this a little bit better. But at the end of the day, we are going to this guy in the right-hand corner. It's the guy with the wrench. I like to explain that as the contractor. So these options are going to be available to you whether you're in the full screen or in the mobile view. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to hit the multi-site manager. We're going to come down to the big green bar on the bottom that says add a new customer, because that's what we want to do. We want to go into our account and add a customer. What we do is we make individual user accounts based on email addresses. There's no two email addresses that are the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and type in testcustomer@gmail.com. Hopefully this is not in our system and it'll allow me to add it to my account. So there we go. The screen opens up. And at this point right now, Hydrawise is going to create a customer with the email address testcustomer@gmail.com. And that customer is going to live in my account. So let's just call the customer. This is how the customer is going to appear in my customer list, which we'll go through in a little bit. Let's label the customer. We'll call it webinar for now, or we call it Jones or Smith or whoever. We'll give it an address to distinguish it from possibly another Jones or Smith or something like that that might be on our account. At this level, at this stage of the game, you have the ability to choose what kind of customer you want to add here. If you have a customer who's very hands-on and they want access to everything on their system, they want the ability to change programming, you should leave them as can modify configuration and run zones. If you're adding a customer who maybe goes off and gets involved in the programming a little bit too much and you don't want them to change your programming, then you can check the option to add them as a read-only customer. From this point, when we click to create the account, what Hydrawise is doing, and this is the key here about adding a customer in this way, once I click this create button, we do a couple of things. First and foremost, we send an email to that email address welcoming them to Hydrawise. And secondly, we put you, the contractor, into the setup wizard to get started. We figure if you're adding a customer, chances are you want to program that controller for the customer. So just to give you an idea, this is what the email to the customer is going to look like. You know, I always describe it to people to just, you can go back and read all the details later and find out what we're telling you about in the email later on. But ultimately, you're going to want to click that blue bar that says, let's get started. And that'll take them to our home screen and have them choose a password for their account. For us on our side, the next thing we're going to do is click let's get started. Okay, and now as you can see, we're on step 1 of 8 of a setup wizard to program the controller. Again, we can do, you know, name the controller something unique from the customer name, or you can name it the same thing. Also gives you the option at this stage to add a serial number now if you have it, or it's saying that it's optional. The theory behind having it optional is that all our programming lives in the cloud, and it offers a lot of flexibility later on down the line as far as adding programming ahead of time and then picking up controllers and grabbing serial numbers and tying that programming you did ahead of time to the serial number of the physical controller that you have. It also gives you the ability to move controllers around and swap controllers through the app while keeping programming. So we'll get into that a little bit later. For now, I'm going to leave the serial number off, and we're going to go on to step 2. Step 2 is just asking you to pick out physically which controller model that you have. Today, I'm going to go with the 6-Station Pro HC. We're in the setup wizard, so it's back or continue. I'm going to click continue. And then the next option, next step of the setup wizard is asking you if you need to connect your controller to Wi-Fi. We already did that in Kevin's example in the garage. If you do need help connecting your controller to Wi-Fi, we give you a little bit of a help menu here. But for today, let's just say no, we do not need help. We do not need to connect our controller to Wi-Fi. And we will move on. We have a couple different programming with Hydrawise. What we have defaulted is our standard mode, which is going to program much more like the Pro Cs and Hunter controllers that you're accustomed to. So we're going to go ahead and choose that and move on to step 4, I'm sorry. This window with the plus mark in the middle of it is going to be a lot of what you'll see in the Hydrawise software. We're just asking you to basically go ahead and click to add a program or add a zone or whatever that box will tell you. And then we launch this screen here to add a program. Let's call this front yard turf. This could be anything you want. You can name it ABC, you can name it 1, 2, 3, whatever you want to. I try to name it as you break up your, the way you go ahead and break up your system. Today, we're going to go ahead and leave it as time-based schedule, which we default as. We could talk about where those triggers come from and how they're going to affect your program runtimes. But let's go ahead and leave it as time-based for today. We're asking what days of the week. You could either deselect the days of the week, choose even, odd, or interval. Let's go today. We'll do Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We'll leave 5 a.m. We'll go ahead and click next. I have the option here in standard mode programming to have this table style of programming where if I had a 12-zone system and it was all under one program, I could select all zones and just go through here and enter in my runtimes. Since we don't have a lot of time today, we'll just do 2 zones. I'm going to say that zone 1 runs for 25 minutes. I'll tab over to zone 2, run for 35 minutes. If we wanted to add a 3rd zone here, we could tab over and run for 30 minutes. And let's just say for program 1, we're going to have 3 zones. And we'll go ahead and click next. And at this stage in the game, so we have the ability to set how you want all of the controllers as a contractor, how you want all the controllers to adjust to weather information globally under your contractor account. In standard mode programming, we also give you the ability to turn any of those options on or off at the program level. So if front yard turf was actually front yard sod, then I may want to think about some of these options, checking off some of these options to allow the irrigation to run regardless of what the weather forecast is. So let's go ahead and click OK here. Add another quick program, maybe one more zone. We'll do backyard drip. I like drip irrigation. We'll click next. We're going to run this every day of the week. We're going to do it at 5 p.m. just to make matters easy. Click next. This is going to be zone 4 and 5. We'll do 45-minute runtime, tab, and we'll do an hour runtime. And since this is an established zone, I want all of my watering triggers to apply. So I'm going to go ahead and include those. So you can see on step 4 here, we got 2 programs. It is laid out for you as to how many zones you've got and which days they're going to run. It's a good screen to make sure that you've gotten all the programming that you want to get done accomplished. You can always add zones or add another program. So let's just say we've got 5 zones of irrigation. We're going to go ahead and continue on to step 5. It's asking you at this point if you want to customize your zones, meaning do you want to label those zones as front yard, turf by mailbox, or flower bed in front of house, or whatever you want to call them. You can go ahead and customize them. You can go back after the fact and customize them. We're trying to show you the quickest way to get going and start to see some water fly. So let's go ahead and skip that. Step 5 is just asking you if you have a master valve on your system or not. You can see nothing changes as I click between the 2 of them. We just need to know if we're putting power out across the master valve terminal. So I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, I do have a master valve. I'm going to click next. And here we are on step 6. We're asking for the name of the location of the controller. So I'm going to enter in a location. I advise you to enter in a full address. Don't just enter in a town or a zip code or anything like that. We want to get as close to the actual location of the controller as possible. It helps us in our weather forecasting. So please go ahead and enter the full address of the property. Click next, and it's asking me on step 7, do you want to enable weather-based watering? Yeah, that's what we're doing here. That's why we went to Hydrawise. I'm going to click yes. It's asking you if you want us to select the best weather station for you. I'm going to say yes. We are going to choose a virtual weather station for you, which we're pinning to the property's address. You don't have to go in and choose. This is basically streamlining the process for people. And then the last thing we're going to ask you with this setup wizard is, do you have a rain sensor or flow meter? Let me just say, let's just add a rain sensor real quick. So I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say, let's add a new one. We'll call it a rain sensor. We are set up with sensors pre-programmed in. So you just need to tell us what sensor you're working with, and the software and the controller can do all the conversion in the background. So we have defaulted for normally closed rain sensor, which is a typical rain sensor. So you named it, you told us what kind of sensor. You just need to tell us where you physically wired that sensor. On the Pro HC controller that we're programming right now, there's 2 sensor ports. You have either sensor port 1 or sensor port 2. Just need to let us know which terminal you've wired the rain sensor to. So I'm going to say it's on sensor port 1. I'm going to click next, and I'm going to go ahead and select the zones that I want that sensor to respond to that sensor. So I'm going to say all my zones, and I'm going to click OK. And just for might as well, just while we're here, add a flow meter as well. So I'm going to go ahead and add a flow meter. We have the flow meters pre-programmed in here. So you basically just need to tell us what size meter you have of ours. Is it a 3/4 inch meter, or the other 3 that we make, 1 inch, 1.5 inch, or 2 inch? So I'm going to say we have a 1 inch meter. I know my rain sensor was programmed as wired into sensor port 1, so this is sensor port 2. I'm going to click next, and I'm going to choose all my zones to have them run off the flow meter. Those are my 2 sensors. I'm going to click continue, and it's basically telling you, congratulations, you have programmed a controller. Click that green bar again, and it's taking me to the home screen for the controller that I just programmed. So this is the screen that I typically advise contractors spend some time with homeowners on. Basically saying, this is where you're going to spend most of your time as a homeowner. Again, if we looked at it from the mobile view, you'd see it like this. That icon on the top right, that's your contractor level options. The hamburger icon in the top left screen, these are all going to be your controller level options. These are giving you access to some of those options that you don't see when you're in the mobile view. If you click out to expand it, here are all those options down the left side. So from this home screen, as a contractor, you're working in the webinar 123 Main Street controller. We display it in 2 different spots for you. As a contractor, by the way, if you want to jump between controllers, you can click here. It'll show you all the controllers on your account. Several different ways you can go ahead and sort the controllers that you want to view. Let's say, that option when you have 2 or 3 controllers on your account doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you have 200 or 300 controllers on your account, it's nice to be able to search controllers by name or address or any type of verbiage that you think might belong to the controller. For a homeowner, just going through and saying, listen, we've got 5 zones of irrigation here. Here they all are. We also tell you about what's currently going on at your home, at the job site. We also tell you the status of the 2 sensors that you have installed, your rain sensor, whether it's stopping irrigation or not. And we give you an update on how much water's passed through your flow meter over the last week. And more than anything, this option here, this check mark down on the bottom, is something very important for a homeowner to know, because if they do lose connection to the cloud from their controller, they could jump in their app and think that they're controlling things, and they won't see things happening in the field like irrigation flying. So a lot of times you get that phone call and you say, go ahead, scroll to the bottom of that home screen. Are you looking at a green check mark? And they may say, oh, no, it's a red triangle. And you say, yeah, that's what I figured. It seems like your controller is not communicating. And, whether it's unplugged or just has lost its signal or whatever the case might be, that's what you're experiencing. So you want to see that green triangle down here telling you that you're all good and connected. Otherwise, for a homeowner, again, looking at it in this type of screen, you've got these options down here. If you wanted to review your programming, it's all going to fall under this zones tab. That's what these showing you your zones, what they are, and your programs. If you wanted to edit any of these things, you'd click the edit button. If you wanted to add anything new, you go ahead and add something new right here. If you needed to add a zone or change a zone, you could do it here. If you wanted to customize your zones and change the name of the zone from zone 1 to, turf by mailbox, you can go ahead and do that here. We could also help you upload a picture of the zone right here. One of the biggest things a customer may want to use is probably going to be the remote control for the system. That's kind of why they got the Hydrawise to begin with. So they can go ahead and click that remote that's pinned to the bottom of the screen. We offer 4 different types of remotes, so you kind of got to choose the one that's, works for what you're trying to use it for. A lot of people use a zone tester, which doesn't include a certain amount of runtime. You can go ahead and throw a zone on, and when you're done there, you can go ahead and skip to whatever zone you want to. So these are the things you probably want to show to a homeowner to go through a system with them. For you, the contractor, from this home screen, let me expand my screen a little bit. We have an orange check mark down here. It says waiting for controller. Remember when we went through the setup wizard, we skipped over the option where we put in a serial number for the controller. So right now this programming is living in your app in the cloud, and it's not associated with any controller. So what you need to do at that point is come in here and hit this drop down. And until you go ahead and link it to controller, you're gonna have this option available for you here, link to controller. So you're gonna go and you're gonna hit link to controller. You're gonna look on the back of the faceplate or within, on the back plane of the controller. You're gonna grab the serial number. You're gonna enter it here. You're gonna hit link to controller. It's gonna take about 20 seconds, if that. And then this icon's gonna go ahead and change to a green check mark. And then you're communicating with your controller. Any of the controller level stuff over here, you have access to all the reports for controller. This is the programming that we just built together. Tells you what each of the zones are scheduled to do. You can, when you have a more built out controller, maybe I'll jump around here a bit, jump into one of mine. You see a little bit more. It goes through and tells you about 2 weeks forward what the schedule is based on predicted weather. So my system is due to come on. I have, if you notice on my home screen, I have grayed out a couple of zones for some reason during one of these training classes, I bet. So if you look at my reports, it's going to show you that my zone 3 and 4 are not due to go ahead and run because they're in suspend mode. So when you look at my schedule, you can see why watering cycle suspended for those zones. Let's see here. Water usage shows you a nice graph on some water usage and water savings. We're not really irrigating now, so these reports are not don't show a ton. But again, under controller settings here, you can you have a lot of options to do a lot of different things for the controller. You can go ahead and change from standard mode to advanced mode by coming in, clicking in controller settings. You could change your the weather station that you're using to connect to. You can also add offline adjustments should the controller lose connection to the internet. They'll use these static adjustments right there. You can also change the watering triggers at the controller level for this entire controller, as opposed to doing it at the contractor account level. So that's about what you've got for on the customer side. For you as the contractor, we can't stress this enough that we want to drive you back to this multi-site manager tab. All right. Within the multi-site manager tab, we have a section called My Customers, very important. This is where we store all your information about all the customers that you have in your account. We pin controllers to a map and color code them for you. If you want to look at one of your customers here, let's see here, look at my cousin. Each one of your customers, when you click on them, we're going to show you any plans that they have, all the controllers on their account, any users that are tied to this account, and any files. So these files could be something as detailed as getting an as-built CAD file uploaded into our system to remain with this controller at all times. It could be something as simple as like a little scratched out diagram of what the system looks like. And the thought there is, look, I always go and I take care of the McKay controller, but I have one of my coworkers going there today, and it's an easy way for me to go ahead and explain, the system without having to explain it over the phone. They can go and click on that file and view, where all the valve boxes are located or whatever kind of information is pertinent to that system. If McKay wanted to buy Summer Home and get a second Hydrawise controller, we don't have to add a new customer McKay. We can go into the customer McKay and add a controller to his account right here. And it's going to ask you the same thing: the name of the controller, serial number, and location. If McKay needed a second user, if his wife wanted to come on, we can add a user here as well. So this is just our way of managing customers and their controllers. Right across from the McKay irrigation controller, there are these 3 dots. This gives you a bunch of different options on things you could do with the McKay controller. If the McKay controller took a lightning strike tonight, it doesn't mean that we have to go out and hang a new controller and go through the programming process again. We had that programming the way we wanted it. So we can come over to the McKay customer, click on him, click on the controller, the 3 buttons across from it, and I can remove the serial number of that controller, and it will do that while keeping all that programming in the cloud. And then once I go ahead to my distributor and I pick up a new controller, I can physically go through the process that Kevin was talking about earlier, hang the controller, get it connected to the network, come back in here, and there will be an option to add serial number here. All that programming just pushes down from the cloud into that controller, and you move on. We also give you the option to move controllers around in your account from a controller that you may be managing over to a customer if you wanted to. I could take this controller here, Demo 12 station, and I can move this to a new account. I can move it over to my cousin's irrigation system if I wanted to, over to McKay, and the controller will show up under his account. So we give you a lot of flexibility within the app. Some of the other options you have available to you under that multi-site manager, we have a maintenance tab here. And this maintenance tab includes an event log that's basically going to tell you everything that's going on with your controller. All of the things that I've done on my account would fall under info. So all this stuff that we just did under my account is going to be listed. Every little addition and programming thing that I did is going to be listed here. If someone were to get into your account, one of your guys, and make some changes that you didn't want, you can go back through, look at what he did, and basically go through and reverse what he did. But if you wanted to get rid of some of the noise here, you could leave it on errors, and you could find out what the latest errors that we're giving you are. And then you can go ahead and acknowledge them and get rid of them if you wanted to. One of the new additions to the app is the ability to not only suspend watering, but suspend it on more of a global level for an account, for a contractor account. So I could click suspend, I could click the suspend option, and I have, again, much like our remote control, we give you 4 different options to suspend single zones on one controller, multiple zones on a controller. We can suspend entire controllers, or even better than that, we can suspend entire customers. So if this were the winter time, or if there's a hurricane coming in, if something was going on, I could suspend all my customers either now or from a start date, whenever, and then we give it an end date over here whenever we want to remove that suspension. And rather than having to go back and turn all the controllers from stop to run, Hydrawise is just going to remember that, and at that date on the calendar, it'll resume wall watering for those accounts. A couple other options here. Customer-wide settings. These are really, really, really important. I think Kevin either went over these or plans on going over them, but if you don't have these things set up for your own account, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's going to make you a lot more efficient. We're basically going to go through and give you the ability to schedule, build alerts globally, so that all the new controllers that you add to your account will have these options, these alerts built into them. So if you haven't gone through them, I think Kevin's going to go through them at another time, but those things are definitely something that you want to set up. We also have the ability to set all of your watering triggers, how all the controllers on your account are going to respond to the weather information coming in. And again, I can't tell you enough. These things need to be set up. They'll make you much more efficient. This is where you really start managing systems, tens, hundreds, thousands of controllers in one spot. Any of these updates, if I wanted to change, I can go ahead and change them, and then I could reapply them to all controllers or just certain individual controllers. So if you really wanted to get in and manage controllers from day to day or week to week or month to month, go ahead and do them here. Adjust whatever you want to adjust and push them down to whoever you want to push them down to. This, to me, is where the real power of Hydrawise resides. And just another thing to point out. So you're looking at a typical account, and a homeowner is going to see this. This is my business information, and we can go ahead and adjust that here. So for anybody who has not gone ahead and done so, they should set it up where they can add a logo for themselves and information about website and contact information. So very simple. Click on here, your business name, contact details, website. Click to have your information listed online so customers can find you. And from a homeowner standpoint, on all the pages that they're looking at through their app, they're going to see your logo right here on the top. And if they click on that logo, it takes them to information about your account, so they know where to get in touch with you. Other than that, some ways to add people to your account. If you got customers, coworkers that you want to add to your contractor account, you go ahead and add them here. You can add those files that I talked about here. This is the down and dirty napkin drawing that I showed everybody. Doesn't have to be high tech. It could be as simple as something like this, and you can affiliate that with the controller in your account. How's that look, Kev?
Looks awesome. No, well, very good. All great stuff. Beautiful.
Fantastic job.
Thanks, buddy.
Killed it.
Anthony, you still with us? Anthony,
Yep, sure.
You ready for a little Q&A?
Sure,
Big
let's
Q&A
go.
session. Here we go.
All right, fire away, Greg.
All right. So let's start with this question. I thought this was a good one. What email should I use when doing a commercial property? So the contractor will be controlling the irrigation. So when you're setting the property up, what email should you use?
Anthony,
yeah, sure. So there's a couple of different ways you can set up. If the customer's not going to have any access at all, the easiest way around it is you set up a Gmail account and call it something like my sites or mysites@gmail.com. And there's a little trick you can do with the plus symbol with a Gmail account. And the easiest way to do that, we might cover that perhaps later on in another session, or just Google Gmail tricks with the plus symbol on it, and it comes up with some links on how to do that. But that way you're in control of the email address. You don't have a whole bunch of email addresses, you just have one. And using the plus symbol allows you to use that same email address multiple times. So that's a cool little trick that's probably going to make life a bit easier with those commercial projects. So.
This question refers specifically to the HPC, and that is, can you install a rain sensor and a flow meter on that controller?
Now, who wants to take that one?
Well, you can install a flow meter and wire it directly to the sensor port, and our kind of workaround is to interrupt the common with the rain sensor.
Yeah.
But no, if you do that, a byproduct of it is your low current draw alert is going to get tripped. So when your rain sensor is active, the only way you'll actually know that is you're going to have a series of alerts for low current draw on every single zone for that customer. So, Anthony, is there any long range plans to simplify that?
Yes, there are. Is that the answer? Yeah. Yes, there are. I can't give you much more details than that.
No,
but
no,
yeah,
that's fine. I know it's
They are
in the
looking at-
hopper. Good to know.
I mean, for contractors who have that setup, I've recommended basically building that alert, making it specific to that controller or any of those controllers, and labeling that alert, something having to do with the rain sensor. So when it pops up for those controllers, that it's not going to be, you're going to see a low current alert labeled as rain sensor or possible rain sensor active.
Yes, that's right.
Art, nice.
Okay. I'll give this one to Anthony. Anthony, will you talk a bit about the paid service options, that being homeowners versus contractors, and how many users are allowed for the options?
Sure. So Kevin, I think you're in charge of the screen there. Do you want to go to hydrawise.com and
Me?
yeah,
Lewis,
yeah.
yeah, you've got the screen, buddy.
There's two Kevins here, man. You got to be specific. Hydrawise.com?
Yeah. And if you can just go to upgrades. All right, so we have two styles of plans. The first plan we offer is a home plan, and customers don't pay for that. If you scroll down a little further, we also offer a thing called an enthusiast plan. Now, the enthusiast plan is where is designed for homeowners or end users. And so if you think of a homeowner or you think of a commercial customer, okay? Now, sometimes they might want some extra stuff. Now, by extra stuff, what we mean is they might want an SMS text instead of having an app alert. They might want to receive an SMS text. They might want to have more than one user. So they might want to have, a couple of users in their system, or they might want to manage more than 3 controllers. So if they do want to do any of those things, they'll need an enthusiast plan. The other thing that we allow for with the enthusiast plan is we store the data for 365 days. So you get a full year's worth of storage. So that's everything from your run times through to your flow rates, all of that stuff, all of the data we store. Now, storing data is expensive. That's why we do it. That's why we charge for it. Now, just to be clear, we're the only company that actually stores data. We're the only company that actually says, hey, we know your irrigation clock ran because it told us it did. Okay, so all of our competitors, they don't even know whether the controller is actually running the irrigation or not. All they know is I told it to do it, therefore it must have done it. So Hydrawise actually knows. The controller comes back and says, yes, I did do it. Okay, so we store all of that data for a year. Okay, if you scroll down to the bottom, we'll talk about the contract plans or the professional plans. Just scroll down a little further.
Yeah.
And you'll see contract just up a bit, and you'll see a little there. See contractor plans. Thank you. Okay. So the contractor plans are pretty simple. Essentially, we charge contractors so that they can manage customers. Now, we're really expensive in our charging system. The contractor plan is going to allow you to have 5 staff, and it's also going to allow you to manage 50 controllers. Okay. Now, that's going to cost you the sum total of $120 per year. So actually, it's $126. We had a price rise. So it's not very expensive. And the idea is it just covers some of our costs. Okay. We've got 9 software engineers out the back here. And, everyone says, oh, I want this feature, I want that feature. Someone's got to pay. Now, yes, buying controllers helps, but the reality is when you guys want features, it's the software guys that are going to do the work. This is our way of kind of getting some of that cost covered. So, so as you move up, as you move through the process, you start taking on more controllers. We just up your plan. So you move from a contract plan to a bronze plan to a silver to a gold, and beyond gold it's platinum and double platinum, and we get a bit out of control there in the platinums. But so yeah, it's just a gradual step. Now, if you've bought a contractor plan and you upgrade to a bronze plan, whatever value is left in that contractor plan, we just extend your bronze plan on a little longer. So you don't lose money along the way. You're not losing anything along the way. All that's happening is as you go from contractor and you go into bronze, what if you've got half a year worth of contractor left, whatever that value is, we just extend it on into your bronze plan. And that all happens automatically. The plans are easy to purchase. You can either purchase them directly from the app, so you can buy them directly from the app itself, or you can get them from distribution. So they're pretty easy to get hold of.
But one thing to add to that, so based on what Anthony's telling you, you're looking at on that contractor plan, you're looking at adding $2.52 a year to each customer that you're monitoring remotely to pick up all that horsepower. And Kevin and I are going to speak to it in webinar 8, but we have a slew of guys charging and making really good money off of monitoring because it's not smoke and mirrors. The information is there. It's making everybody's life easier. What else we got, Greg?
Anthony,
by the way, quickly, I think it's a good point to point out that we also don't max out at 200 controllers. We've got guys in the thousands.
Correct.
Oh yeah.
Anthony, you mentioned saving reports for 365 days. Now, are we going to have a way to automatically send reports to customers, and when might that come out?
Yeah, so we are working on it. So we are working on a system where we'll send an email out. Sorry, it won't be an email. It'll be a notification to customers. So if you imagine you're a contractor, and you'll have an ability through Hydrawise to have automated reports sent out to your customers on a weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly basis. And what we'll do is we're going to tell them some information about their controller. So we're going to say it'll start off with your logo at the top. It'll then say, congratulations, you've saved 25% of the water this week. The bulk of the savings were because it rained, or because I suspended the controller, or whatever the reasons were. And we'll give them a little insight into what happened with their controller. They'll also be able to click through and see what the forecast is going to be, what the irrigation is going to be like, and also what happened yesterday. And so there's two different styles of reports we're playing with, that will happen probably later on this year. We've got a lot of stuff we're pushing through, and that one will probably happen later on this year. We've done the screens, and now we're just doing the work on it. So, and long term, the idea is to grab that information and get feedback from you guys and say, hey, I'd like it if it did this, or can we tailor the report to do this bit? And then we'll add that functionality in. So from a customer interface point of view, it's going to be a really cool little tool for contractors to be able to go, okay, I'm charging this customer for maintenance, and here's what I've done. Here's what Hydrawise and me as a contractor have done to your system to make sure that we're saving water and that the system's running as best as we can. So.
Okay,
Sweet.
Cool. I'm going to leave this question up for grabs. Is one type of programming better than the other, standard, ET, or virtual solar sync?
I'll start it and everybody else can finish it. Standard programming, 2 words, speed and simplicity, right? You want to get it up, you want to get it running, you're not looking to do a bunch of customization. Complex or needy customers, meaning, geez, I have this perennial bed and I want it to water 5 minutes a day, regardless of what those water triggers are doing to the rest of my system. Going into advanced mode will allow you to fine tune those water triggers down to the station level, as opposed to in standard mode, how we do it per program, as Kevin showed you earlier. Beyond that, virtual solar sync versus the standard predictive, where standard predictive, if you're going time-based, you have an increase, seasonal adjustment of your choosing based upon a temperature in which it initiates. 1. On the low side, you have a trigger that will reduce seasonal adjustment by a percentage of your choosing based upon a temperature of your choosing. So you got one high and one low. Virtual solar sync is adjusting every single night based upon the previous 3 days worth of microclimate data forecast into the future, and it's doing it down to the 1% increment. So that being said, you're getting a better water savings from virtual solar sync, and it can work in conjunction with predictive watering triggers. If Kev would have selected virtual and not gone time-based, he still would have had all those water triggers at the end, with the exception of the two that increase or decrease based upon a temperature and to a seasonal adjustment setting that you preset. But if you, Anthony, you want to add any color to that?
Yeah, so look, going forward, standard mode is kind of new. Well, we say it's new, it's only been around for a couple of years, but it's new with Hydrawise. And standard mode is fast becoming our most popular method of irrigation. And we think, when you go in and you've got those options, standard or advanced, the terminology is kind of wrong. Like, don't think picking standard mode, you're missing out on some stuff. Standard mode actually has some really cool stuff, like with a Pro HC, 6 start times, 6 programs. So you've got 6 programs, and each of those programs can have 6 start times. That gives you 36 possible combinations of starts and stops and things. It is quite a complex controller using standard mode. Where the term came from was industry standard. It uses program ABC style programming, and that's really that's where you should start and stick with that. And as Kevin just said, you're going to have time-based and virtual solar sync. My recommendation is virtual solar sync for your lawns, or your turf, if you're not growing anything in, okay, and virtual solar sync for your shrubs and those plants that have deep root structures. If you've got flower beds or you're going to grow in some turf, time-based. That's the recommendation that we're sort of we're putting out there. We see a lot of people having success with that, and we've got some cool tools coming up later on this year that are going to make that whole setup process so much simpler. But yeah, standard mode, look, it's the quickest way to get in and out and off the site. So if you want to get in and out, do standard mode. We do have a lot of contractors who like advanced mode, because that's what Hydrawise has been for the last 10 years, and that's okay. Hydrawise has been around for a while, and we've got a lot of customers that like that, but standard mode going forward is certainly what we're recommending.
Okay, and I think there is a simple answer to this question. I'll give it to you, Kevin Battistoni. The homeowner has 2 homes with 2 Hydrawise controllers and 2 contractors. How do they manage this with 1 account in Hydrawise?
So it is going to take 2 accounts. All right, so 2 parts. On the homeowner is going to have 1 account with the 2 controllers, just like Kevin showed you in the previous screen. Next week, we will show you what we call contractor to contractor account merger, okay, where that allows a single contractor, like say you're an irrigation guy and you're getting your work from 3 or 4 different landscape contractors. And so you need to merge with them and also allow that landscape contractor to get his hand into the cookie jar just for the controllers and accounts that he's affiliated with. So you let them into your account, they have their own little sub account, and then you pick and choose which controllers they can actually view and have access to. So that's the short answer, is we can do it. And tune in next week and we'll actually walk you through that process.
Fantastic. You might not know this, Anthony, off the top of your head, but do we know what percentage of Hydrawise systems actually have a flow meter with them?
Yeah, so we do. It's 9%.
9%?
9% of our controllers have a flow meter.
Awesome. I didn't think you were going to have that answer right off the top of your head, but sweet.
Yeah. A couple of things on that, if I can jump in there, and I'm glad you brought this up. 9% is currently the amount of flow meters we've got out there. We think that's going to go through the roof when we release our wireless flow meter. So there's a little grab for you. We are working on a wireless flow meter for Hydrawise. So,
all right,
there you go.
That's what's up.
Kevin and I just got excited.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the 2 Kevins just got super excited.
Yeah, let's keep it PG.
What happens, I guess any of you can answer this one. What happens if I lose my phone or break my phone? Do I lose programming?
The accounts live in the cloud, so you could re-sign in to any device that you can connect to the internet with, whether it's a laptop or you buy a new mobile device. You just reload the app and sign in with your email address and your password, and you get everything right back on your phone and your app. It's one of the beauties of Hydrawise. A little bit different than how our competitors do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Just,
Anthony, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's an account that lives in the cloud. So you lose your phone, doesn't matter, buy a new one, and away you go. Download the app, you're good to go.
We smash phones
Awesome.
around here all the time just for fun.
Yeah.
Why do you have that prepared and ready? All right, Anthony, any thought to adding a spot for homeowners when they create their account to add their cell phone number? This would be nice and handy for an alarm situation to have the contractor answer them quickly.
Yeah. So no, unfortunately, everything you see with Hydrawise is built around laws or rules, and the rules are not ours. They're laws that we're trying to get around. So one of the things we try and do is make sure that we're holding as minimal personal data as possible. So storing mobile phones is another level of personal data that we don't want to hold. If a customer does put their phone number in for an SMS alert, so they've got an enthusiast plan and they want to get an SMS alert, we don't store that in our system. But we do have a messaging system within Hydrawise, so we have quite a lot of contractors now using the messaging system to communicate with customers, and those messages are stored in Hydrawise, in the Hydrawise system. So there is a messaging system in there. We'll probably talk about that later on, but that is proving to be quite popular for customers to communicate messages through to their customers directly. So yeah, we don't store phone numbers, and a lot of it is to do with data protection laws. So yeah, there you go. Sorry.
Cool. That's I guess it's a security issue, and we don't want to have that information out there if it's not necessary. So cool. Let me ask you this: any plan to have sub 1 minute runtimes?
No. No, I
Okay.
can answer that pretty quickly and pretty clearly. No, to have sub 1 minute runtimes requires a different component that we have to timing mechanism we have to put in the controller. It's very expensive. I get that people want to use Hydrawise in nurseries and for propagation, but the problem is that time chip is expensive, and we're not going to embed that into all of our controllers. So, and at this point in time, we don't have an ag version. So if we had an agricultural version, yes, we would put that chip in. But at this point in time today, we don't have one. So yeah, it's a physical, mechanical thing. It's not just us saying let's allow for seconds. So sorry about that.
Oh well. All right, well that's what we got for you guys. If you have any other questions that come through, please feel free to email us.